We're discussing the situation in Egypt following the Hosni Mubarak verdict. Joining me from New York is Hamid Abdel-Jabbar. He's a lecturer and professor at Rutgers Center for Middle East Studies. From Cairo, we have Iyad Labib, a political commentator and analyst. And joining me here in the studio is Saha Khamis. She's a Middle East expert and an associate professor at the University of Maryland. Saha, let me start with you this time. You said a moment ago that you thought the revolution had been aborted, but you are hopeful that there will be changes in Egypt. What do you think the Egyptian people are going to make of these developments in court? You know, in the election before Abdel Fattah al-Sisi came to power, there was an Islamist government led by the Muslim Brotherhood. It was overthrown.
Right. Let's, take a few steps back and look at the whole scene, right? I mean, in line with what Dr. Abdel-Jabbar was saying earlier, the Egyptians were hopeful that there's going to be a trajectory, a transformation to, a peaceful, smooth democratization process in the country. With what happened in June 30th, we actually saw what some people described as an uprising, but some people described as a coup d'etat, because we have seen an overthrow of a democratically elected president for the very first time in Egypt's modern history. And following that, the country has been suffering from a very deep and very serious polarization, where Egyptians, unfortunately, do not see things eye to eye anymore, with people being deeply divided about the country's present and the country's future and what the next steps are that should be taken. And today, with what is happening in the country, even the legitimacy of the present, president or government in Egypt is in question, because those who have perceived what happened in June 30th as a coup d'etat are definitely shedding doubt on the legitimacy of the current government and the current president himself. And they see what happened in terms of the acquittal of Mubarak and the symbols of his corrupt regime as simply an extension of this kind of illegitimacy, which does not provide a clear hope for the country moving forward. So when I said hope, my hope was really in the Egyptian people, those who were protesting in the first place, those who were making their voices heard, the young activists, the young people who want to see reform in the country, that they will continue to make their voices heard using peaceful measures, using social media, still voicing their own opinions, and not having this voice being completely silenced for good.
Okay, let me go to Cairo and get Iyad's response to that. Iyad, we heard some response from the Muslim Brotherhood. That organization called the entire trial, and I'm quoting here, a farce. And we just heard that this has led to deeper divisions in Egypt. Has this widened the political gap in Egypt? Is it now a far more divided country than it was?
I do not believe so. I believe a lot of the people who have reservations on the outcome of this trial or are not appreciative of it will not sympathize with the terrorist group, the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm deeply disappointed in the West's I have no idea if this is ignorance or decision or selective memory. The Muslim Brotherhood has been a terrorist group since its inception in 1928. This is something that is, you cannot discuss that. This is an organization that by no means should be able to run for rule or have an opinion in politics. You Americans live by the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause. I have no idea how these people had a chance to run, even if some louder people, some loud voices supported them for a certain period of time. And as it has been said that people are making, my colleagues who are now speaking, or not my colleagues, people who are now present in this discussion, they are actually suggesting that there were billions that have been reserved. This is an unbased fact. I can also say by the same token that the elections were rigged for the Muslim Brotherhood. On the other hand, what has not been rigged by everybody's I think testimony is the presidential elections. The legitimacy of the current regime in Egypt is not in any question. I am not a supporter. I am not part of any political party. However, suggesting that a president who was elected by a 92% margin is actually not legitimate because somebody doesn't like a verdict may seem to be as far removed from reality as Maryland is from Cairo. And I would like to also say that I do not believe this will deepen any gaps or divides that currently exist in Egypt. This is a storm in a very small, shall I say, pond. I don't think it's going to pass. There are some political figures who are going to try to invest it towards their own interests, and I am quite confident in predicting that they will not avail.
Okay, let's go to Hamid. Hamid, we've heard a whole load of statements there that Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is a legitimate leader, that the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization, and that the elections that brought them to power was rigged. Are we going to look at another period of sustained political instability in Egypt because of these divisions?
Yeah, I would like to just remind the viewers that similar cases happen, and we are political scientists. We always like to draw theories and conclusions. And we see what happened in Chile, for example, when Salvador Allende was elected, and he was not popular with the Americans. And a coup d'etat was arranged by Pinochet, and that led the country for 17 years of bloodbath and oppression and dictatorship. And look what happened in Chile after democracy was re-established. Similar case happened in Algeria when there was the Islamic group were about to win the elections, and the military interfered and stopped the elections. And look what happened for the next following 10 years, a bloodbath in Algeria. So this is not the first time. I mean, there was a bad government as it may be. I agree that the Muslim Brotherhood are good in being opposition. They are good in being in jail. They like to play the victims. They like to play the martyrs. But they are not traitors. I mean, they're not terrorist group. I mean, you can't tell me that a movement that was established in 1928 and that had millions of followers all over the world, including Egypt. When Hassan al-Banna was assassinated in 1949, there was over 1 million members of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and that movement spread all over the world. They have some ideology. People don't agree with them. Whenever there were elections, they were the most organized, the well-to-do. And they won elections in Palestine, they won elections in Morocco, they won election in Tunisia. In Turkey, the Justice and Development Party are close in ideology. But you can't accuse them, I mean, just outright that being a terrorist group. They were elected. The Egyptian people who put them in power, and no other power in the world can put them in power in Egypt except the Egyptian people. That's what happened, and that is 1 year. It's too short to judge a group that they had failed completely in 1 year.
Okay, we are going to